Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called The Midas Touch, a short story by Harry Riley. This is fiction, and resemblance to anyone, living or dead, is coincidental. Connor Sterling, a big ex-miner, was now driving a pink van for a florist shop in Mantham, a former colliery town in the Midlands. It didn't bring in so much money, so he supplemented his meagre income by performing as a comedian in the working men's clubs of the Midlands and the north of England. He was in his early 30s and thought there must be an easier way of earning a living than this. He sat down with his wife Gillian, and they both tried to work out a new strategy for his future income. What was he best at? Sport was out as he felt too old. He was getting fat from swallowing gallons of beer, and Gillian had spoiled him rotten by too much home cooking. Furthermore, he hated any form of exercise. Gillian remarked that he liked meeting people that he could spout for England. And that was what set him off on a completely new track. "You're right. I've got it. You always said I'm a news junkie. I like politics. I've got a good following in the clubs. So many people know me already. I shall stand as a Member of Parliament." Some time ago they had moved to a house on a new build estate, and Connor had been active in the residents' committee. They had been actively supported in their demands for better services by Elliot George, their Labour MP. He was a local solicitor, and had invited them all to join the Labour Party. Only Connor and another neighbour had taken up the invitation, and now, after making his decision to go into politics, Connor sought out Elliot George and asked his advice. Elliot told him that they would support him financially and unofficially if he chose to run as an independent. Then, if he was voted in, he could announce his intention to cross to the Labour Party. Elliot advised him his chosen road would be made easier if he had a gimmick. He pointed out that Martin Bell had a white suit, and this helped him stand out as a man of integrity, to be trusted. Connor liked this idea as he could utilise his comedy garb, routine and catchphrase, and put it to good use. Coming on stage with a cheeky grin, he had stolen the catchphrase from a long-dead comedian, Tommy Trinder, and changed it from "you lucky people" to "hello, you mucky people," which always broke the ice and got him a huge laugh. He'd adopted a Jimmy Savile-style blonde wig and a big unlit cigar, and a Max Miller flowery silk suit to complete the ensemble. His act was a near-the-knuckle jigabout, as he picked on members of the audience front row and made them squirm. The ladies loved it, and the men, many ex-miners, fell about with aching sides from too much mirth. Elliot said he also needed a strong local issue, and this, it was decided, should be opposition to Europe's biggest muck heap, hazardous waste, being deposited in a big hole that was once a thriving local coal mine that Margaret Thatcher had ruthlessly abandoned, throwing many able-bodied men on the dole. This was a winner, thought Connor, as he knew most people still felt aggrieved and ill-used by the soft South. Elliot knew his party couldn't lose. His committee had selected an experienced politician from outside the area, and with Connor Sterling as a backup independent, standing on his "Our muck is all the muck we need" banner, he felt they had the opposition licked, and he was correct. Connor swept into an easy victory at the polls. Clearly the electorate loved him. He then proceeded to milk the system for every penny he could get from expenses and perks, and was soon on the board of several blue-chip companies. He bought a second home in London and acquired a taste for easy, decadent living. Gillian was soon ditched in favour of a nubile showgirl floozy, and he ballooned up to 3 times his previous size. And the press nicknamed him the Mucky Monster from Mantham. Then disaster struck. He was just driving back from an all-night drink and drugs party at another politician's country pad when he heard a police siren behind him. Flashing blue lights filled his rearview mirror, and he foolishly stamped on the gas pedal. Thus began a hellish chase as he took sharp bends at over 80 miles an hour. He knocked over 2 elderly pedestrians and careered on his headlong rush to escape the law. Realising the police had stopped to assist the injured, he carried on and finally ditched his car, knowing it was too hot. He was desperate, and his excessive drugs intake stopped him thinking clearly. He saw an isolated house at the end of a quiet lane, and skulking around the back, unseen in the darkness, he forced a kitchen window open and clambered inside. Having opened the fridge and extricated an orange drink and some cold pie, he hungrily took a mouthful. By this time he was in a blue funk and needed to sleep and clear his head. It was daybreak when he awoke and thanked his lucky stars he had found an empty house. He made himself some breakfast and switched on the television for the latest news. It wasn't long before his name was mentioned. The reporter said the police had tried to stop his car when it was noticed a tail light was unlit. They chased his car at high speeds through a built-up district, and it was later found abandoned after a hit-and-run incident. It is believed Mr. Sterling's kidnapper made off with his hostage and forced his way into a private house. The police had surrounded and cordoned off the entire area and expected to make an arrest very shortly. The report went on to describe Mr. Sterling as a rising parliamentarian with an incisive brain and brilliant powers of oration, who was being courted by the major parties and even thought of as a possible future leader. He seemed to have the Midas touch, with every issue raised in the House being warmly applauded and receiving major support. It would be a tragedy if anything untoward were to befall him. Connor switched off the set and peered through the curtains. By God, they were right. Outside the house was swarming with armed police. Without a second thought, he opened the front door and shouted, "He's gone! He left in the night!" The police escorted him to the police station for a debriefing, where he was listened to very sympathetically as he embellished his alleged kidnap at gunpoint by a vicious armed thug. And then a plainclothes police inspector entered the room with a frosty look on his face. "Now, sir, could you just repeat your statement in front of the occupants of the house you broke into? They were hiding, terrified, upstairs all night long after seeing you break open the kitchen window and force your way in. They claim you were quite alone." End.